Episode 16, we're at 5. This is a commentary. Let me turn on the sound. Alright. We're going to count to 3 and we're going to press play. Here we go, you guys. 1, 2, 3.
Previously on Stargate SG1.
Hi, I'm Martin Wood, the director.
I'm Robert Cooper, the writer of this episode and one
Hell
of the
yeah.
executive producers of the show.
And I'm James Stitch, the visual effects producer.
So, this
And I'm
is
Buddy.
Last Stand, the second part of a two-part episode that happened this season. And previously on gives you a really good recap of the nude bomb, the prick ring, the way that we were going to get Daniel Jackson into the space station, and this is Ravenna being destroyed. So where we've left off, obviously, at the end of this is with Ravenna completely destroyed by this invading army, which is Zapakna's army. And we have just introduced all of these system lords.
We try and put all the eye candy into the previously on, even if it doesn't tell the essential story.
Sarah.
And we find out that Lantash Martouf's ghoul, or Tok'ra, has
Have you talked about the
been in...
the fact that
Elliot.
this was a...
Yes. Yes, this was a patch job that because
well,
Junior wasn't available.
Let's just say I was equally as excited about putting the symbiote into our red shirt character. The guy from Proving Ground.
Oh, yes.
Red Star Trek.
Yeah, it's a
Elliot.
Star Trek reference. It's what we call characters who are who join the team for this episode
Ensign.
and are ultimately doomed to die.
Our ensign expendable.
Yes,
Yes.
he doesn't have a last name. Elliot.
Elliot. Yeah, Courtney.
Or I will bleed you dry.
So this works really nicely. I love the fact that we were able to go right from the previously on into the show itself. And Osiris gets the little prick, and the drug works on her again. And again, what I was talking about at one point was having her POV of our actual Lotar.
Mm-hmm.
But it actually is dealt with fairly well here, where we don't have to get back and forth between sort of what the drug shows us, the way we did in Fifth Man.
Isn't it forbidden to bring weapons to the summit?
If you speak of it
I
again,
think this episode probably ranks up there for bringing together the most elements from previous episodes in the Stargate, the Stargate universe. You know, it's got reoccurring characters. It's got concepts from earlier episodes. You pretty much have no idea what's going on if you've never watched the show before.
Buddy.
That's true. Now, when you write the second part of a two-part, even though the main idea about this was originally yours, does it add complications to sort of writing the script?
Not when you're producing both parts, because you can then just do a pass on the whole thing and put all the good parts in your episode. But we work so closely together, and our offices are really only a couple of feet away, so we can yell at each other through the halls and say, "Are you putting this in part 1?
That's cool.
No, I'm putting it in part 2." We actually board the whole story out on a big
Whiteboard,
blackboard,
Right.
and,
Blackboard,
and come
whiteboard,
up with all the beats
chalkboard.
and pretty much know exactly what each person is gonna write.
Now, given the opportunity, would you rather write the first or second part? Does it really matter to you?
Oh, I always like paying things off that have been set up for me, as opposed to having to set up things that, may or may not get paid off.
Nice.
Now, this
The
is
wrap
the
up.
conclusion of a two-parter that follows on the heels of destroying the Tolan, ruining the Tok'ra in this one.
Well, the truth is, when we were developing a lot of these stories, we weren't entirely sure the series would be coming back for 6th season. And
Damn.
so one of the things we wanted to do was wrap up a lot of stories that could hopefully dovetail into the concept for a feature film that Brad Wright, one of the other executive producers and co-creator of the show, and I had to sort of follow the series. And so
that was gorgeous, by the way.
by going by having a sixth season, we then sort of have all these episodes sort of in the middle of fifth season that seem to be coming to a head or leading to something, and then we kind of had to pull back and say, whoa,
we still need some friends.
We still need some stuff to go. Yeah, but this is sci-fi, so nobody ever dies completely.
Yep.
Everybody's got.
As proven here, this is sort of the return of Martouf in a way.
Threats that exist outside this galaxy.
Now, when we started putting together the sort of the sets for this, one of the things that we had to do was consolidate where we were going to be and in this spaceship. And one of the decisions was to not to have anybody else on board. It's a huge structure, and if you don't have anybody else, you don't compromise yourself in terms of security and things like that. And you can also, it lends itself to production because you can contain where you're shooting. You don't have to show 10 different rooms this size on a ship like that, which it normally would have. Right. And so I think that it's well dealt with. It was a question somebody asked me once: is how come we don't see more of the
because we couldn't afford to build more of it.
That's not the reason, Robert. It's actually because...
That's not the reason. Don't say that.
They can't walk around the rest of the ship.
You're always having to fight the battle between, the budgetary constraints of producing a television show and your imagination as a writer, wanting to do all kinds of fantastic things. So...
Now here we've said Anubis' name for the second time in these two episodes. This is where everybody finds out who it is that the antagonist has been. One of the things that you and I talked about, Robert, was how to make him someone that is feared by everybody, somebody that they do, and everyone's reaction here. We sort of go around the horn and see their reactions to it.
Yeah, often you can do a lot more with a silent reaction than you can with a line of dialogue or with a really cool visual effect.
This just that beat right there where you go around everybody and see it. There's nothing said, but of course everything gets said in their looks. This is an interesting scene. This is the scene.
This whole sequence was...
All right, Bullet Truth, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. We'll catch you later. Thank you for hanging out. We'll be back Friday for sure for Star Wars A New Hope. That'll be our Friday night movie. We'll eat some corn dogs too. We'll be here hanging out. Thanks for being here.
This scene just took too long. There's a huge deal about sort of how to get these guys dead. I've always wondered why they wear armor, because they know it
doesn't really do much
doesn't
good.
do anything.
Or why they use staff blast, because they know we can dodge them.
Yeah.
These sets are the sort of second incarnation of the Tok'ra sets. They're all sort of... The concept for them was that they would be crystal-based, and the original set in Tok'ra 1 and 2, and I think it was second season.
Second season, yeah.
Had sort of the cross-section of the crystals as the makeup of the tunnel, and then those particular tunnels are sort of more of the vertical crystal concept.
It made life for James much more difficult because...
Well, I don't know. I mean, John Gadecki was the supervisor for those original Tok'ra episodes, and he had just as much a struggle. What he did in that show is they had to sort of collapse the tunnels, and that was a really hard effect too. So for whatever reason, crystals just are not very friendly in three-dimensional
Well, probably because they have such a finite structure at the end. It's not like a straight line. Yeah. They either have to grow out of the ground or they have to come from somewhere. They can't just sort of form the way that a wall could.
Yeah.
Here's yet another, I could probably go on forever listing off all the interesting connections to prior episodes, but here's Jacob who is way back to, again, season 2
Tok'ra.
Secrets was introduced as Carter's father who had cancer and was saved by having a Tok'ra put in him. Courtney was in, as I said, Proving Ground as Elliot, was introduced there. You could have done like a 45-minute previously on for this particular episode.
Yeah, you could have.
Zapakna, who was a Gould in first introduced again in I believe it was a second season episode that saw the return of Skara originally.
Right. I don't remember.
Third
Serpent's
season.
Venom?
Third season.
Been,
Serpent's Venom?
Billy Choi's episode.
Yeah. I don't remember. It wasn't that.
James, everything comes
wasn't
in
either.
context of visual effects for James.
Yeah.
And
I have no idea outside of that context. Well, it must be tricky for you guys when you're writing the episodes as well to try and balance that being too referential to previous episodes.
yeah, I think the true hardcore fans of the show really like the back referencing and the fact that our show does tend to acknowledge the past and grow out of it. That a lot of shows, science fiction shows, have a what's sort of we call a reset to zero at the end of every show, and Star Trek was very much like that in many ways. But
Okay, forget the pep talk.
we, I think, try and balance the episodes throughout the season about 50-50 shows that will sort of act as what we call one-offs that anybody could watch and sort of know what's going on. We certainly hope that you could watch this and be entertained even without having followed all the history. I just think that if you know it, some of these scenes have a lot more resonance.
Well, it's not like trying to watch one episode of a soap opera or something like that, which
Exactly.
is basically impossible. You have to...
I mean, to me, the magic of doing a lot of this, these scenes here between Elliot and Carter was to take advantage of really Carter's.
She never
Carter
got a
never
chance
got
to.
a chance to say goodbye and felt very responsible for Martouf's death, and that it was a sort of a really a loose end for her, and that this was able to this particular episode was able to give her some closure in that particular storyline.
I like the fact too that you've put them in a very closed space like that.
Outside what we believe to be a lab. 3 had obviously been killed by weapons of the Tauri.
Then there are survivors still free.
It would seem so.
What about the chemical weapon?
No evidence of it has been found. The Tokra computers were sabotaged before our ground troops arrived.
Then find the missing survivors.
The tunnels are extensive, my lord. But we will not fail you.
Yeah, right. Oh, you giving me sass? There he goes. I'm gonna look Babylon 5's writing. We'll get there one day.
I love pretending that styrofoam is heavy.
That's actually plaster. That's a
Bro.
plaster rock.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
He was fighting to live. He just
Pretending that the styrofoam is heavy.
The symbiote I carried was Martouf's mate. Martouf and I became close friends because of it.
I'm telling you, he loves you.
Yeah, one of the things that we had to do with this was, of course, put that rock behind Elliot because it was so close on it. It couldn't be a piece of styrofoam. And every time he would move, it had to feel like it was a rock. So we had the special effects people make plaster stone rocks that actually, if you threw them somewhere, they would break apart and things like that. But they don't look as detailed.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have to check
because
it
they're
out.
poured plaster, what we call snow plaster. And this is I like this scene. I like what happened with it when we were shooting it. I like the fact Amanda simply said, I don't want to turn and look at him. I want to play the whole thing facing away from him. And I think it's very well done, the way that, Martouf comes back this way and through Lantash and is able to talk through Elliot. This was a different scene, too. There was a whole scene about this vat of Gould that you cut out, Robert. This is one of my favorite set pieces.
Yeah, it's neat, isn't it?
Sometimes, I mean, it's funny when you listen to what some of the fans often say on the internet. They think that
that's a great effect.
Thanks.
They think that we shoot a lot of stuff that we then cut out of the movie, and that there's all this stuff we've left on the cutting room floor, and I would say more often than not we're short when we finish shooting the episodes, and
we shoot new scenes
in order to add time.
Wow.
and that all you're doing is trying to cut for pace, and rarely do you ever cut a whole scene that has any kind of serious content.
Section of tunnel.
Now we're coming up to the creating the crystal wall and things like this.
Hell yeah.
It became very easy for production. All we ended up doing was jamming a crystal into styrofoam rock and then letting James take over from there, pull the wall out, and we show them in the end.
I think that's kind of one of the reasons why it's so difficult, is because so much of it is dependent on the 3D to sort of carry everything. It's a before and after in production, and then we match and do something else in between. But it's kind of a nebulous concept too, because it's, where are these pieces going? Are they just shrinking down? When they shrink down, what exactly is causing that to happen? And we went through long sort of discussions and conversations about what exactly is happening to the crystals when they open up. And Matthew Talbot Kelly actually built this in 3D, and then we added the glow and to sort of, I think, harken back to what we did in the past. And then we have to somehow believe that next shot is the end result.
Oh, yeah?
I think that's part of the problem that all of us had with it, is that you have a wall that's finished and you've got all this weird stuff in the wall and things like that, but to get from that
badass,
to
it should be all right.
it has to be animated and doesn't look real, and there's no residual glow on the walls and things like that, which you feel like there should be something there, and we talked about it practically putting some...
so sort of, dirt basic in a way, and then the effect is so kind of glowy and nebulous that it's almost they work against each other. And, that one works a little bit better, but poor Matthew works so hard at getting that. And I think in the end, it's 75% of the way there. If we had to do it again, I think it would just get better, because we start learning every time we do it.
One of the tricks to production is this is exactly the same haul we just came from. It's our longest haul, so we used it. I
mean, my biggest problem is that ultimately you still have a studio floor,
right?
And I think that's one of the unfortunate, facts of production design on a TV budget and a TV schedule in our studios, is that for some reason the cost of elevating a set a foot off the ground in order to get a detailed floor just doubles the price. We don't obviously have that kind of money, and so you always end up with some form of either cement or dirt or whatever, and something that was although I think the original Tok'ra sets had the crystalline floor.
They did,
we just didn't go that way here, and I think that also contributes to the problem, is because you're retracting these crystals into a floor that then doesn't look like it's part of it,
or has been affected by retracted crystals.
Continue to cling to the gods if we cannot act like them.
Again, because the show is so long, this scene started out being something different, and it's interesting. What's interesting to me, having known both sets of scripts where we saw, what we shot, which was, there was more information from Osiris in here, where she and you started talking right at the top of the scene about, about Yu's relationship with Anubis, and we don't get much of that in here, and it's again because of the constraint of time that you don't have in feature films.
It's not just time. I honestly believe that this version of the scene is more entertaining, and that the show has a better pace this way, and that you really, when you go, the process of going from script to shooting to cutting the show is really an interesting one, because you have to kind of abandon your children. You have to say, distance yourself from the script as a writer and look at it as someone who is then responsible for editing the show and making the best of the film that was shot, and say, no, I can't be loyal to that scene or to that line when the overall show is going to be better cut this way. And oftentimes, as you've seen, we'll take a scene and take lines from the whole all over that scene in order to reconstruct almost an entirely new scene, but one that has a bit of a faster pace to it and still says what the show needs it to say.
Telling him to stay
away. Taking something from a page where you're saying it in your head You may be reading it out loud. And actually having the actors put their performance into it, and you see their face, and you think, well, this line's not necessary because we've got this face doing this, and this says what I need to say.
Exactly. Oftentimes you put way too many words in their mouths, and they can do it with a look. Other times they can't.
Jacob.
Yeah, go ahead.
They're going to vote on whether to accept Anubis back. Apparently he has a plan to attack Earth.
I mean, poor Michael Shanks spent a great deal of this episode on the phone.
Yeah. This is one of the reasons, again, that we were talking about it not having people in the halls, because there really is no place for him to go to have these conversations. But, when you only have Lothar and System Lords moving around, it makes it much easier for sort of some of the stealth that's got to go on in here.
I'm not doing that anymore.
True. What's your point?
What they're referencing here is the scene that was actually taken out of the show. The scene where the Lothar says that these are the Gould of my master.
Oh yeah, they knew that they were going to do pretty much 5 seasons from the beginning.
The show itself explains that.
SG1 just played it by ear.
Yeah, I mean the beats themselves ultimately play out in the scene in which Daniel talks to that other Lothar, Baal's Lothar.
Yeah. I like this scene.
One of the people who doesn't get a lot of credit on our show is Christina McQuarrie, who works tirelessly, endless hours, along with her entire staff to make some pretty amazing costumes.
Yeah, this is one of those that she was right down to the wire with it, literally standing on set as we're ready to shoot, finishing up some of the costumes, and she'll be there whenever we have new costumes on set. She's always there, no matter how busy she is, just to make sure that. And she stands in the background.
They sewed it up real well.
Thumbs up, or waits for someone to sort of look her way, and she won't leave until she's. It's been acknowledged that these are going to be what we're going to use, and sometimes.
All right.
In terms of
don't hype it up too crazy for me.
You take a headdress off,
and end up watching it and be like, "Man, didn't you say this was like the best thing I ever seen?" And, look at the ring transporters, love that shit.
It makes her crazy. This makes you crazy.
We had a lot of the appearance of I was trying to save some money in the original concept of the appearance of this this tub, and it just didn't work, and we ended up having to add the rings.
Mini rings,
but they work.
They're
fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's all part of the same thing. I mean, we have no idea how much we talked about this scene in the original concept of the story, and sort of looked around at each other and said, "Are we really going to do this? Are we really going to have them eat these guys?" And ultimately we said, it's going to be great.
This is fabulous. As far as I'm concerned, this was a fabulous bit of three-dimensional work right here. Those don't actually exist, of course. They're holding on to little tacos that are made, little wrapped tacos.
She enjoyed eating that one a little too much.
But there's nothing beyond their hands. It's just this little taco that fits in their hands. They're all holding these things and actually eating tacos.
Tacos, bro.
Noodles and things like
that. Oh,
and
the poor guy. For whatever reason, he needed an extra number of takes, and they just kept having to eat these things and eat these things, and and it wasn't something that one would want to swallow.
Dude, that's so funny.
That whole idea came out of
I wouldn't eat that day or the day before those takes
in the series,
and I would just eat away, bro.
So many of these, little symbiotes hanging around, because there's obviously a lot of Jaffa. Where are all the Gould?
Mm-hmm.
So oftentimes story ideas come out of us just sitting around going, "Hey, wait a minute."
They said that it had like noodles inside of it, noodle tacos. That way it looks all like gutsy.
Say, okay, we're gonna find an episode where this kind
noodles
of
in there.
Yeah, for sure.
Favorite.
I mean, there's a lot of times where there are holes that we figure out after the fact.
Okay,
and
Red Dwarf.
Sometimes
that one we still got to catch for sure
before they actually make it to screen, and yet there's only so much explaining you can do within a particular episode.
I believe you, I'm down.
Leave it for later, figuring, well,
chorizo tacos, hell yeah, dude!
Hey, wait a minute,
love chorizo.
Or why didn't they say this? And then, sure enough, an episode will happen 2 or 3 down the road, and that question will be answered.
Let's go.
Might have
Once
to get
again,
my
we've got
chorizo
Carter
on one of these days soon.
Carrying Elliot. We've got these two huge guys.
Love chorizo.
One an ex-football player, and we have Carter carrying him.
They do that every night for as long as the summit continues.
What do you think will happen when this is over to us? I mean,
That is between you and your master.
don't you think it's strange that the Goa'uld are letting us see their sacred rituals, hear their most secret conversations?
I have been in the service of my master for 24 years. In that time, I have seen and heard many, many things. Have you not?
My master's...
I love this scene. This is a scene I really particularly liked shooting because it works out very well with these two people with their backs to one another.
It's also got a great reveal in it. I mean, the Jaffa have a very clear-cut reason for why they do what they do. And, of course, we needed a clear reason as to why Daniel could pose as an undercover agent on this mission, and so we invented the Lotar, which is the human slave to the Goa'uld. And and sitting around saying, well, why would they do this? Why would humans serve the Goa'uld this way, and why would the Goa'uld trust them? And of course, the obvious answer to that is that not all humans have our point of view of the Goa'uld, and certainly they see them as these very powerful beings, and why wouldn't you want to be one if you didn't know all the downsides? You've got eternal life, strength, power. Sounds good, right?
Mm-hmm. I'm actually kind of hoping that I can.
Hell yeah, dude!
Holidays, I'll just
be a Goa'uld.
Take a symbiote. Yeah.
Take a symbiote.
He would grant me the honor.
I'm even down for the cheap kind over from Jack in the Box.
This is well done. What ended up happening with this is that
hell yeah,
the way that it was played. When I first started listening to the rehearsals,
especially with the munchies,
it's a little
how we
big.
do.
The whole thing is a little bit, but you have to be kind of fanatic with it.
Tacos
gone, Goa'uld gone to be able to do this.
My homie Gur from Invader Zim. It's all about those tacos.
He was obviously weak.
Oh, I love that reveal.
Your master has exacted tools from each of us.
Yet you all voted to welcome him back in.
Speaking of wonderfully over the top.
Yes. System Lords. They have to be over the top.
Yeah, I mean, these guys are as cartoon as they come, and it's fun.
The System Lords nothing.
Anna Louise Plowman, who plays Osiris, is just perfect. Just perfect.
The collective power of the System Lords. What deed does Anubis offer as evidence of the dedication?
It's interesting. So when you get in this tight, one of the things you can do with looks is that you can let a look play out a lot longer in a wider or in a tighter shot like this than you can in a wide shot. So there's at the head end of the line and the tail end of the line, there can be an awful lot more, expression and time spent sitting there, because there is an awful lot going on for all of them.
Again, here's another.
I've seen him eat burritos, but not as much as tacos.
Prior episodes.
Or what about that
and things we felt
pizza that gives Zim that
zit? That is,
what's it called?
Revenge
of the Zit Boy or something like that.
Began in the Curse, where she
shall
was
call him Pastulio.
A colleague of Daniel's in university, and
Gur tells the pizza guy that he loves him. I love you.
Got the Goa'uld in them in the Curse, and
so funny.
And then she was out there. And we never really had followed up on Daniel's feelings of responsibility vis-a-vis her character, and in many ways,
that just means we're gonna have to have ourselves an Invader Zim party here soon.
He's failed to save her as well, and that.
Did you ever see the new movie that came out?
Take some risks at the end of this episode.
That's the only thing keeping him on the ship right now.
From right,
and as I said,
5 years ago,
of these
something like that.
Have this sort of, if you followed the series and if you know the history, these moments have an added value to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, dude.
I think this is one of the nicest
I am Zoom
space devices we've done.
I totally agree. It's a beautiful design, and I think that adding of the nebula behind it.
Yeah, Zim's our guy.
Perfect. So much of the time, everything we do in space.
Oh, damn, dude.
Black stars.
Man.
That's great. So much nice to give it something else to sit on.
I'm stealing used cargo ship.
So now here, when we actually get to see a cargo ship,
yo, Vietnamese style, where you at,
position,
bro? You got Netflix?
It really sells
Hook Area 51
this
up,
shot,
bro.
which is a practical shot, and also sells the fact that we've got 2 cargo ships we're talking about here, which is
yeah, dude. We need to get you some
the
flicks.
first part where we sort of show up with Jacob in a second cargo ship that's cloaked.
So much of the time, the visual effects are there to sort of give it that scope and scale, and also to.
Isn't Zim the voice of Daggett from the Angry Beavers?
Spatial issues.
I think it's the same guy.
Telling the story
sounds like
from
the same guy.
Where
same
are
voice.
you point of view.
That's it. And when you're in space, it's difficult to shoot.
And no one can hear you scream. Moving in and out of cargo ships.
If that was true, of course, you wouldn't hear the ship either, really. Right?
True.
It's because the microphone's in a blimp.
Yeah.
That does have an atmosphere.
Yeah.
Yeah, same guy, nice.
Interestingly enough, sort of this moving into the cargo ship. I love that. That's a visual effect.
Yeah, that hallway didn't exist.
Yeah.
It's actually sometimes cheaper to do it as a visual effect than to actually build the hallway.
Mm-hmm.
Only because you see it just for such a fleeting amount of time.
The thing is, though, if we had actually built it, Martin would have shot it 15 more times. So. Any chance he can get to add
shit!
Outside
You got him.
Little square box, he'll do it.
And this is a nifty little twist that I quite like, and that is that, these Goa'uld are very Machiavellian, they'll stab each other at the drop of a hat.
How unfortunate that Lord Yu could not trust his slave. Each was mortally wounded in the fight as the slave attempted to kill his master.
Sarah, it's me, Daniel.
Yo.
That's gorgeous. This is really well done.
Yeah, it is.
As it passes through here, through this the force field. Good job.
Yeah.
That was nice. I like when the perspective changes like that too. When you go from top down, it doesn't feel flat and two-dimensional.
Yeah. Thank you, Image Engine.
Oh, coming up on an unfortunate prop here. Sometimes you're in production and there's so much stuff
the
that's
Irken
going on
Empire.
around you, and you're spending so much money on so many different things that you come to a little story point about a device, and you say, oh, just use that Zaytark detector and slap a dish on top, and
dude,
it'll look great.
Love Invader Zim. I got the first 3 episodes, I think, on my channel from
James actually added the bounce and the
2 years ago, like around now, 2 years ago.
There was a huge bounce. Yeah. It's rubber. When we first dropped it bounced about 40 times.
Anyway, the prop I was talking about actually probably in the next scene, but
the reuse of the Zaytark detector, which after this show was destroyed in a peculiar accident of a truck backing over it, so it can never be used again.
Actually, we're using it again, so we'll have to build another one. So.
Now,
damn, that's wild. That's funny.
This begins part of the best sequence.
And I want some credit for this, guys. I
will.
It's the only reason I came here today was so that I could tell the story of how I sat in the production meeting, in the visual effects meeting,
browbeat his visual effects supervisor into doing his job, for God's sake.
And James said, "Okay," and then this one shot, and it'll cost a great deal of money. And I
so
said,
much of the time when I budget, I read a script and I budget it, and I know that we don't have the money to do the big thing. So I went into the budget meeting meeting and with the plan to be able to pull this.
Wait, what? You got the tattoo for the Irkins?
Hey, that looks like a Zeto detector with something stuck on top of it.
The sequence we're talking about, by the way, is the crash.
It's coming up, so we got to start talking about it now because it's going to go
the
really
face
fast.
of Zim,
It's going to cost a lot of money.
The Zim
I
head,
came in with an idea of how to do it.
The little antenna ears with the circle, the ball,
and,
something.
You know, Robert sort of thought
That's wild, dude.
I was all on board with you. I was
totally.
right there with you. It was going to be 4
That's
shots.
funny. That's awesome.
I just felt like there's so much going on in the shows that, you know, we're just not going to waste our breath pitching some huge thing. But little did we know
that I was going to cut all the visual effects from part 1.
Well, not all of them, but
and in order to pay for this sequence. Yeah. I sat there and said, guys, this is a crash. It is the climax of the show, and it is a huge sacrifice that's being made by Jacob and Daniel, and I want to be in that ship while it's crashing. I want to feel it, and I don't want to do just this lame one shot. You know, oh, there's the quick
I almost
crash.
got the point of origin symbol tattooed on me when I was into this show. When I was like 15. I'm still into this show, but when I was like 15.
Is shortchanged because we can't afford to do it properly. And, you know, it was, to me, so important. I remember distinctly this sort of very long pause as everybody, including, you know, the line producer and the other executive producers and Martin and James are all looking at me going, are you serious? Are you kidding? Do you know what this would... And then do you know what this will cost? And do you know how we're going to do this? And I said, well, let's figure it out. Let's explore it. Let's, you know... We started looking at references of other crashes that had been done and you know, I really feel it helps to sell the heroism of the moment.
Generally, I would jump on board with something like this, but
Martin, usually it's your idea, and I'm going, oh, you know we can't afford that.
Yeah.
What do you think?
And in this case, it became my...
That was a hard shot because we're shooting at something that we can't see because we're actually close.
Yeah, I like the way that it sort of just folds the space just a little bit.
So, you know, this would have been enough. This would have been, and then you see it crash. That would have been the usual thing, or we crash on the
TV
inside.
way.
But we, you know, Robert said that's what he wanted, and I said there's no way, and he said, but that's what I want. And I said, well, I can't do that. And he said, do you understand what I'm saying?
I said, make this thing crash.
Yeah.
I
don't care what it costs.
We did a number of different things inside too. This is a visual effect here.
This is actually a helicopter plate that we shot.
Yeah, we shot some helicopter stuff
at the same time as the explosions from earlier. There's a couple of different facilities actually worked on this. Rainmaker did all the stuff that was in the sky, not including that shot. Well, actually, they did do that shot. And then Gadecki did the whole crash, which is
That's practical. This is wonderful. This is a model flying through model trees.
Yeah, we built a model with model trees and composites.
Wait, you got what? Bass clef, G clef?
And there's nothing a little camera shake can't help out, you know?
And that was actually my addition to the...
Was that first thing you said?
Once Robert gave us the okay to do this, then I started going insane.
I don't know what that is.
It had to crash through trees, and it couldn't just...
No, it couldn't just go over the trees and crash on the hill. It has to actually go through all the trees. So, I mean...
My favorite line is coming up right here.
The seatbelt line?
Yeah, I mean, you can't have a crash like that and not pay it off, of course.
Yeah.
And that is, you know, why in the world don't these things have seatbelts?
You okay?
Not really.
Yeah, you think a race fast enough to fly around in spaceships would be smart enough to have seatbelts, huh?
Whenever you're doing effects like that, you got to do models. There's just no way that you can do that with CG, and that was the only way that we could have done it. And models are great, and they actually don't cost a lot more than what it would cost to do, say, something that you could do with CG. But you got to shoot it, and if it works when you shoot it, fantastic. It's just sweet because you're adding and you're just making it better. But when it doesn't work, it can be absolute disaster.
Damn.
Well, but you also get the ability to do more shots.
Yes.
because you're shooting the model, you can shoot it as much as you want, and then you are going to sweeten it later with some visual effect. But it's not like doing a CG shot from scratch and then multiplying that by the number of shots.
That's exactly right.
There's a chance we might be able to save the car.
This is, to me, the ending of this show was critical, and that it was all about the emotion of leaving him there, and we went again round and round a number of times in the room discussing, well, are we going to see him die? How are we going to... We could never, on a TV budget, show what we need to show, and that is these guys somehow getting to the Stargate through the, number of Jaffa forces that we saw in the earlier shots. And so, the idea of playing the ending entirely on Elliot's face...
Extreme. All right, I'm down.
Jaffa marching towards him, and I think you just... inherently know to a certain extent when you watch a Stargate that Carter and O'Neill and Teal'c and Daniel are going to be back next week. I mean, there's not often a lot of suspense about whether they will survive. It's more about how are they going to get out of the pickle.
I got a funny story about my tattoo on my arm.
And to me, the real emotional
I called it Oma Dasala from here, from Stargate, for the longest time. It doesn't really look like her. But it was supposed to kind of be like a medieval form of her.
Of being left alone out there.
And my uncle,
what turned out to be the
he wanted to be a tattoo
Vancouver
artist
blessed us
for a
that
while.
day of
And
giving, actually
got himself a tattoo gun, some ink, and
nice mood to the whole
he
thing.
told me once upon a time, hey bro, you got a lot of canvas, dog. Let's ink you up.
The ending right
and so we did.
A whole contingent that wanted to
just a little bit.
Add boots tromping in and
visually. Yeah, I wanted to
going
just
up
hear
above
it
and seeing them converging.
Yeah, buddy.
And things like this.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to actually do this.
This was I was referring to
old and
earlier
now,
too, is that a lot of the fans on the internet felt as though there was an ending that somehow we cut, and didn't show, and
the huge ending with 1,000.
How could we possibly not show the great scene with SG1 fighting their way to the gate? Well, this is what we shot, and
we never
did
more of it.
Yeah.
Ended up getting grounded after I got it.
One of the things I
got
like about our show,
got one here when I was 15, and then this one at
guest characters, or not necessarily our lead characters doing heroic things, having the big hero moments, and it's actually a testament to Richard Dean Anderson to an extent, who is very much the star of the show, and could say, no, I want the big hero moment. I'm the star. I should be the guy who does everything that's cool.
I haven't seen King of Staten.
Hero-like, but he doesn't. He's very much willing to sort of
yeah, dude.
Turn that.
That was my uncle.
Not just the other lead characters.
He was a gangster, so he was tatted all over his face, his neck.
Who do very touching and heroic.
Too much. But kept me away from gangster stuff. I'll tell you what.
I love this.
Seeing the life you live.
I quite like the fact that often our characters who can be very flippant.
Yeah, dude, don't get tats done young, bro. If I
seemingly untouched by the events.
If he wasn't passed away and still alive and kicking somewhere, I would probably get these removed. But the fact that he passed away and all that, it's like, man, I don't want to get rid of him. Maybe one day I'll get him fixed up, but at the same time, reading the good book lately, I don't.
Joel Goldsmith.
I don't think I should tap myself any more than I already am.
Comes through for us.
Your body's supposed to be a temple, dude. Protect it. Keep it right.
One of the Jaffa playing a sax in the background.
Way to break the moment.
Damn, dude. The end.
Last Stand. Thanks very much for watching.
Thank you.
Wow.